Thank you so much, everyone, and welcome to this episode where we want to discuss something about the local church treasurer. And as many of us know, that the treasury holds a very vital part in the local church that we have today. Many people are elected into this department, maybe each and every year or after 2 years, depending on the timeline that a particular church has put across to do its regular election. And particularly the executive part of the church. The executive here means we have the church pastor or the district pastor, we have the church clerk, we have the church treasurer. And where do I leave the elders? An elder form part with the church pastor because in the administrative level they take part, they take charge when a particular pastor is not around. But whatever they do in consultation with what the pastor has actually assigned them to do. So we shall be discussing so many things about the roles of the church elder, the roles of the church clerk. But for this lesson today, I just want us to look at something small about what really should a church treasurer do. After being elected into that office, what are your duties as a local church treasurer? Welcome. You can join me, you can make some input. Where you have questions, you can address them later. A local church treasurer, as all of us are aware, that the treasury, we have qualifications that are needed for a person to function as a treasurer. Though these qualifications are not always published while people are going for election, but the nominating committee who are sitting down to elect these people actually needs to look at this qualification. Is the person we are electing to be a church treasurer, is he or is she qualified to be in this particular position? And more so, the current status of the global that we are in today requires that a person being elected into such kind of an office at least to have a knowledge of IT, because majority of the functions of the church clerk now have been narrowed down to a system called the church fund management system, that is the CFMS, and every particular treasurer is actually required to know how to go about this church fund management system. The treasurer qualification, first of all. We are told that the treasurer is actually called to an important and sacred task. Not only God's tithe and offerings are holy, but also the treasurer himself or herself is wholly set apart for a very special work. That is according to the book of Ezra chapter 8 verses 28. That we can narrow it down to say that Ezra is trying to say that you and the treasurers, you have been set apart as holy to the Lord, which means that whatever thing a treasurer does, it should be holy to God. And then in the book of Numbers chapter 18 verse 32, the Bible records that be careful not to treat the holy gifts of the peoples of Israel as though they were common. So that one means that a church treasurer holds a very vital position in the local church. So what are some of the qualifications that we need in the treasurer. A church treasurer is one who is supposed to have the following qualifications. One, a church treasurer needs to be a person who is trustworthy. You are trusted with people's money. You are trusted with the people's things. You handle various things in the church. So one of the requirement for you as a church treasurer is that you are found worthy, you are found trustworthy to handle such things. If you can remember, God is saying that if you cannot be trusted with little things here in earth, how then can you be trusted with things which are bigger, more than what you handle? So trustworthiness is one of the biggest things that a church treasurer has to have. Remember, treasury comes from the word to trustee, to trust. So we trust you with what we give you. That's why we are giving you this job, because you are capable of handling them. Number two, a church treasurer is supposed to be a faithful person. Faithful in that we, after submitting whatever we submit to the treasury, are you faithful in handling them? Are you faithful in reporting them? Are you faithful in keeping them? Or are you the one who will be squandering other people's things when you have received them? So you have to remain faithful with whatever thing that you receive. Number three, you are supposed to be found unselfish. Unselfish here means that whatever you receive as a church treasurer, those things are not yours. They belong to the members of that particular church. So you cannot handle them as if they are your own. That when the members want to use them, you put some limit, you put some degree of maybe requirement for you to release whatever the members want to do with their money or with whatever things they have indeed submitted to your office as a church treasurer. Number four, you are required to be a transparent person. Transparency here means that you have to remain very much accurate to accountability 100%. How is this possible? This is possible when you are trusted, when you remain unselfish, when you are faithful in your duties, then transparency becomes a normal thing in your daily life. We have found so many treasurers that after receiving whatever they have received, a lot of transparency cannot be found on them. If you carry out a simple check, you can find that indeed no transparency in work of maybe one or two out of 100 treasuries that you can collect. So being transparent in whatever you do, how often do you report your work? How often do you tell your church members that this is what we have? How often are you so giving report back to whatever people have given unto you? So let a church treasurer remember always to be transparent in whatever matter that he or she handles in the church. Number five, you have to have an excellent reputation. A church treasurer is somebody that does not, you are there. When people look at you, they just fail to understand how did you reach that position of being a church treasurer. So your reputation as a person, how well do you relate with the members of the church? How well do you relate with the officers of the church? How well do you relate you individually together with your family? How do you carry out yourself? So excellent reputation. You can read that in the book of Nehemiah chapter 13 and the verse is 13. Lastly, we are told that as a church treasurer, you have to be a person who is orderly and willing to learn. That is very much important task that you have, very much qualification that you must have. That as a treasurer, you are being taught each and every day, because nobody was born knowing everything. Nobody was born that you can be able to do everything 100% without maybe consultation here and there. No, a church treasurer, you have to be a person who is orderly, and you are also willing to learn from other people. When seminars are called, a church treasurer is supposed to present himself or herself in order to equip uh, himself with the current status of the church goings. We are told that as a church treasurer, we have what we call the duties that you have been elected in that particular church to do. And how do you perform these duties? Local churches are always reminded to avoid exchanging or to avoid re-electing church treasurer, just like the church clerks. Why? Because the treasury needs a person who is able to be elected. You can't be able to re-elected each and every year, just to provide the continuity in record keeping and reporting that are required for a particular church. If you read your church manual, you are going to find that because of the important functions of the treasurer, it is indeed wise to choose one who can be re-elected to provide continuity in record keeping and also in reporting matters of the church treasury. And we may find that large churches which have several people in them, like maybe 2,000, 3,000 people in a church, we may have a church treasurer being elected together with assistant treasurer. Assistant treasurer here means we have the treasury secretaries that are being mandated with the duty to help in the secretarial functions of the treasurer. They work under the authority of the church treasurer, who is their boss in this case. So, what are some of the responsibilities that the church treasurer have been allocated in a local church? Number one, a church treasurer functions is to collect fund in the church. After collecting fund, you manage these funds. After managing these funds, you indeed report them. So those are three important functions of the church treasurer. One, you collect. How do you collect? We have several departments in the church that are collecting funds here and there. So these departments, they actually collect money from various departments. And the central place, the store where they bring their money, is the local church treasury. So the functions of the church treasurer is to collect them, to pull them together, put them in one place. After collecting them, the church treasurer has to manage. How do we manage? Number one, you manage them by this. You bank whatever you have received, and this one goes to our local church clerks who are just using money here and there without banking. Each and every church, we have been told that you have to have a functioning bank account, where first of all the church treasurer, after receiving money from the members, he or she actually manage these funds by taking them to your bank account. In taking them to the bank account, there brings what we call transparency in whatever work that the treasurer is doing. Number two, after banking this money, how do we use them? We use them in this manner. When a church wants to use the money that they had collected, the church actually, through the church chairman, who is the church pastor or a church elder, depending on who is available, may call for a available board. Available means that it might not be a full board. A full board can happen maybe after 1 month, one after quarter, but a available board is a board that is called to actually put actions on something that is emergent. So the church chairman calls for this available board to discuss how do we give a particular department or a particular area that need funds. So the church board actually, after looking that they have money in the account, they refer them to the church treasury. So the church treasury, through the authority of the church business, write a check to that particular person or particular department so that they have the authority to use the fund that they have collected. In that way, the church treasurer has managed properly the funds that the church actually received. And then lastly, we are told that the important function of this particular office is to do reporting. Majority of the church treasurers fail to report whatever they have received. So members are just walking in the dark here and there, bringing a lot of questions which might not be actually there on the ground, but because you lack to give them report, they just think that there may be something fishy going on. That's why you don't want to do it, to give them the report back. So always, as a church treasurer, remember that you give your members a report back of what you have managed. And there is also another function, very important function of the treasurer, is that the treasurer in all the local churches is a mandatory bank signatory of that particular church. That when the church treasurer is not there, there is no money that can be spent in that church. Why? Because the church treasurer is the one that collects them, is the one that manages them, is the one that reports them. So if he or she is not there to do all these duties, and then somebody somewhere goes and withdraw money and use, how then will the church treasurer be accountable for such kind of scenarios? So he or she has to be the mandatory in capital signatory to the official bank account. We have 4 people who are managing the bank account of a local church. um, uh, for all the church people. One, we have the church pastor, the district pastor, who is the chairman. Number 2, we have the church treasurer, who is the treasurer of that particular church. Number 3, we have the church secretary. The church secretary, who is the church clerk, is also a signatory to the bank account. And then we have what we call a member. A member here is the first church clerk of that particular church. So those 4 people manage the functions of a particular bank account on behalf of all the members of the church. Another important function of a church treasurer here is that the treasurer, being the first handler of people's envelopes, people's giving, you know the areas of weaknesses and you also know the areas of their strength. You have been tasked to encourage faithfulness in returning of tithe and deepen the spirit of liberty on the part of the members. That because you handle my envelope, because I handle your envelope, I know that you have been doing this, but you are not doing this. So I have been tasked, or the treasurer have been tasked to actually encourage members how they have to remain steadfast in their area of being faithfulness with their finances with God. Remember that we are not supposed to take that does not belong to us. You are not supposed to take that does not belong to you. God has actually ordered us to only take 90% but remit 10%. So as a church treasurer, I have been given an opportunity to come and encourage the faithfulness in returning of tithe and also to deepen the spirit of liberality of every member in the church as one of the best duties of a church clerk, a church treasurer. Do not be a church treasurer that you don't encourage members. Do not be a church clerk that is a church treasurer that is just there. You don't know how members are giving. You don't want to encourage them in their giving. A church treasurer actually stands before the members and tell them we are doing good, we are doing bad. And then we are also told that one of the responsibility of a church treasurer is that you are a custodian of all funds in the church. At no particular time do any group, any department in the church hold and account their money individually and separately. After collecting money from those particular departments and those particular groups, they have to submit the money in the church treasury. At no particular time should a church allow any department or any group to open a separate bank account from the official account of the church. For that one will bring a lot of problems when the signatories are not there. So a church operates one account that have been assigned by the church treasurer. So the church treasurer has got authority over all the church funds that are being collected in that particular church. Having said that, we have another important functions of this department. That you have been elected in this department, you have to know that in each and every fund that you received from people, each and every single coin that you receive from a particular person, from a particular department, or from a particular group, you have to issue an official receipt. You can issue a written receipt that is voted for by the church. You can issue a receipt in form of the CFMS that we are now using currently to actually send a message to the recipient of the giver. So that one will build trust between you and the givers of the church. Do not forget to issue an official receipt to the giver in the church for any amount of money that you receive. You are also being tasked that as a treasurer, you have a duty of remitting funds to the church and the conference account promptly after counting. We have several treasurers that they take members' money, they go and keep in their houses. They use, or maybe the fund get lost, and then when the money is needed, the money is not there. So as a church treasurer, remember always that immediately after counting, remit what belongs to the church account, take it to the church account. Remit what belongs to the conference account to the conference bank account. You also have a duty of preservation of financial document, vouchers and receipted bills. As an important function of the church treasurer, you have to ensure that you preserve this document. Actually, why do we preserve them? Because your books have to be audited. After every year, a church treasurer should submit their books to the church auditor or the conference auditor, or at any given time when the call is made for an auditing purpose to be done. Remember also that when you are a treasurer and maybe you are working in a cosmopolitan area where movement is, you never know when you are going to be transferred. So when you are a church treasurer in a particular church and maybe you are going for a transfer before the end of the period, ensure that before you leave and before you hand over your work, remember that your books have to be audited, so that when you are leaving with 0 cases behind, so that if a new treasurer is coming in, he picks up from an audited books of the account. So remember to preserve those books and do not burn any of them, do not leave any of them, do not leave a chance for any of them to get lost, because when an auditor asks for it and it is not there, it brings a lot of audit queries that you may fail to understand. Responsibility, another one for the church treasurer. The church treasurer relationship with the members' confidentiality. Because you handle people differently, because you handle different people's money, you handle their envelope. A church treasurer should always remember that the relationship with the individual members are strictly confidential. You should not be a church treasurer that you just open your mouth here and there, bad mouthing people how they are giving, who is not giving, who is giving how much. A church treasurer, you have been trusted by people to handle their confidential matters financially. So do not be a person that you badmouth your church members on how they give, because you don't understand the heart of a person. You don't know why they are giving the way they are giving. So your work is only to collect, to manage, and to report. No any other discussion after that. The treasurer should never comment on the tithe returned by any member, or the income, or anything concerning it, except to those who share the responsibility of the work, that great harm may be caused by failure to observe this rule. That as a team you are working in the treasury. I have told you before that the treasurer is elected together with the treasury secretaries. The secretaries for the church here, the church may decide to give the treasurer secretaries, or in the absence of the church secretaries, the treasury team consists of the chairman, who is the overall treasurer of the church, that is the church pastor. Number 2, it contains the church treasurer. Number 3, it contains the church clerk. Number 4, it contains an elder. And number 5, it contains the deacon department, or the head of deacon, that in the absence of the team that I've said before, this particular team may take over as the treasury team. So while you're doing your work in that table, remember that it is only this group that are supposed to know which member does what, which member does not does what. And every discussion ends at the door of the treasury room. That we have been warned that should we take matters outside the treasury room, a great harm may be caused, and that one may call for further church discipline in the case on the course of the treasury team that are doing unwarranted things to the church member. The church treasurer, your other function is safeguarding the purpose of the fund. All offerings and gifts contributed by individuals are for specific fund or purpose must be used for that purpose. Remember always that neither the treasurer nor the board has the authority to divert any fund from the objective for which they were given. We have seen several treasurers, after collecting money for maybe a development, you find that the church treasurer together with the church elder, they take the money and put it on other things, maybe say buying chairs for the church, and that was not the main purpose as why the church fund was collected. So as a treasurer, remain strictly to the duty in which the funds were collected for. If at all the funds are collected for development, channel them towards the development. If they are collected to buy church chairs, channel them to buy the church chairs, and so on and so forth for that particular time. Why do we do that? We do that to build the confidence of the giver. But there is an exception to this rule. An exception comes here in that the church might not have enough money in their local church fund account to do particular things here and there. So what happens is this, that a church board will recommend to the church business to allow them borrow the money from actually the department that has money in order to sort out or to square out whatever thing they want to do in another department. So in that case, the giver will give a go ahead for the church to do what? To borrow that money and channel it to another area in which that money was not collected for. Another responsibility of the church treasurer is the proper management for payment of money by members. What do I mean by this? That the treasurer should urge that all money paid by members, other than the regular church collection, be placed in the tithe and offering envelopes, unless an alternative method has been implemented by the conference. An alternative here means this, that a church may come up with other ways of paying tithe and offering, which I have said here that currently we are using the church fund management system, where actually members are just supposed to use their mobile phone, load the account, and then pay for whatever they want to pay. And all the churches are encouraged to adopt this function, which is the church fund management system. It makes your work easier as the giver. It makes work easier for the treasurer. It makes work easier for the church in order to manage the funds that are being collected in the church. In the absence of the envelopes, which actually we have been told that the conference may devise another alternative way of collecting fund. But where there is no CFMS, where the church fund management system is not there, the church treasurer should ensure that all monies that are being given by members are actually put in the envelope, and specific functions are described in a particular envelope depending on a particular conference. So that one is left to a giver. What do you want to give for? How much are you giving for? So that by the time the treasurer is indeed counting and indeed making accountability for this, he knows that so and so gave money today, such amount have been paid for this particular function, so that the tallying becomes easy, the reporting becomes so smooth, and the church moves with ease without a lot of problems in the church. And having said that, we are going to get introduction about this thing that we call the church fund management system. What actually is the church fund management system? What is CFMS, and how does it help us as church treasurer to do the accountability that we have just decided? The church fund management system is the very simplest way of making payment, remitting and submitting the funds that you have as an individual to either conference account or the local church account. I want to welcome you in my next video so that we may share together what all this CFMS is all about. You're much welcome. Keep it posted here for more videos. If you have any question regarding anything, you can tap me and I'll be glad to give you an answer to that. God bless you all.